Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you underground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you break.
We've had enough
of all the money you make.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait.
Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
of all the rules you were breaking.
We had enough
of all the money you were making.
We had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, just roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough of all the rules you're breaking. We've had enough. All the money you're making.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken. We've had enough. This is the proclamation.
We've had enough. Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice. We've had enough. Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price. We've had enough. Philando, Breonna, George Floyd. What? We've had enough. So many gone. How can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We had enough. John Crawford, I know you've heard. We've had enough. Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand. We've had enough. Sean Bell, what the hell? We've had enough. Freddie Gray, did you hear what I said? We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diana Hawkins. I'm the Executive Director for Hawthorne Neighborhood Council. I'm sitting in today for my good friend, Mr. Al, who's under the weather. I see we have Mr. Elijah Norris with us. As always, Ms. Dee Phillips. Thank you, Dee. She's the board chair of Hawthorne Neighborhood Council. And I know that others will be joining us. I just want to say again, welcome to the show today. Elijah, you're here by yourself, so I'm just going to open it up. Tomorrow's the big day. As always, it's good to have you. The platform today is let us know what your plans are, and then, before too long, we need you to weigh in on those three questions that everybody is going to be looking at tomorrow. So with that being said, take it away, my friend.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Can everyone hear me okay? Excellent. And thank you for joining us too, Ms. Phillips. I don't think there's anything I can say that's going to convince the voters at this point, a day away. Really, one thing I do want to say is to get out and vote. If it's not for me, vote for somebody. Vote for those three issues that our city is going to be faced with here shortly. What to do with rent control, what to do with restructuring our city government, and also what to do with our police department. Are we going to go down the path of doing something different, something we haven't really researched a lot about, but something that a lot of people feel is going to put our city in the right space? Or are we going to vote to reform our police department and to have a public safety that's centered around our police institution? I'm not sure right now what our city's going to do. That's why it's a valid question, and people are going to vote for it tomorrow. I just hope that people get out and vote for something. I think that's something I think all candidates can get behind. Get engaged, get out, make your voices known. For those who haven't voted before, this is the perfect opportunity to vote for something. We're going to be faced with some few big questions, and also we're going to be electing some people from a few different wards who can really change things up and shake things up on city council. And then also we have a mayoral race as well. We have some good candidates right now. A lot of people want to put the city in different directions. So just get out, make your voices known, vote, participate, and just stop complaining, get up and do something about it. And the first way you can do something about it is get up and going to the polls and casting a ballot for something. And I'm just here right now just to really stress my frustration about some things that I've been noticing lately and this campaign environment that we're in. I was just on Facebook and I saw that there's a camera crew outside of Victor Martinez's home, which I think is completely inappropriate if that is true. I didn't get to do too much research. I get on Facebook, do my thing, and then I leave. But from the comments I was able to read, that no one's denied it. And it appeared to be Victor's home, that there's a camera crew outside trying to force him to change his opinions on a few different issues right now. And regardless of how Victor's going to vote, I think it's completely inappropriate to show up to a person's home with a camera crew where he has his family. That is people's safe space. We go out into the world all day long when we put ourselves out there. When we come home, we should at least be able to have some type of peace. And to disrupt that person's peace, I think it's completely inappropriate. And I think it also echoes what's happening across our city. We've become so polarized, so divisive that you can't sit down and have a civil conversation with anyone. And if you think differently than someone and you hold a different opinion than someone, you're evil. And it's almost the same as like they're really willing to attack you, to show up to your home, to prevent you from leaving your driveway because you don't agree with what they agree with. And I think we need to start having conversations with people in our community. We need to start holding more spaces for people to heal. Because honestly, I think people are just doing that because they are so frustrated with the system that they don't know how to react anymore. And that the only thing that they feel that they have left is to use violence. And then when we get to that point as a society, when all we have left is the use of violence to get our point across, well, we have way bigger issues than creating a new public safety department. We have way bigger issues than a rent stabilization bill. We have way bigger issues than restructuring our government. We have an issue with humans and how we treat each other. And until we start having those tough conversations, unfortunately, I feel like we're going to continue to see this polarization and this divisiveness in our city. And our children are watching us. Our youth are watching us. What world are we creating for them? What environment are we creating for them? And right now, all I see is animosity, hatred, and people willing to go to the extremes to get their points across. And to me, that just saddens me, and it's very disheartening. So I want to show up today and at least put that out there to those who are watching, to remind each other to be kind to one another. Even after this election, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And we're going to have to be able to we're going to have to come together to actually be able to accomplish anything. No one person, no one city council, no one mayor is going to be able to change these things around. It's going to take us as a community to step up and do those things. And it starts with each and every one of us. So hopefully people are listening and people are watching this and they're hearing that message.
So Elijah, if I ask you this question, if it was one thing that you could change when you got into office right off the bat, what would that be?
Better communication between our elected officials and our community members. It just doesn't seem to be any. I feel like a lot of our elected officials are scared to really engage with people in the community, and the people in our community don't like, hate, and probably are even afraid to engage with them as well. So for me, it's how can we get better at communicating with people in our community, not just that handful of people who always participate, right? Not just that handful of people who donate to our campaigns, but everyone throughout our city. I think I would really want to take a deep dive into that and figure out how we can increase that communication apparatus.
Wow, I mean, it's amazing because, like you said, it's so many different things and different ideas, but there's really, like you said, there's no plans in place. We have all these ideas. We got to come together some kind of way, no matter who wins. And like you said, let's stop pointing the fingers and let's get the work done. Hello, Mr. Tekken, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine.
Good.
I was just talking with Mr. Elijah here, and we were talking tomorrow's the day, and this is your last appeal to whoever you may want to appeal. This is, the bottom line is those three questions. We know we all got to face them, and just, go for it. Tell us how you feel. I mean, Elijah,
You know,
jump in
yeah,
with you.
yeah. Well, it was important for me to make this final Monday appearance, before the election. I've been not at every single one, but many of them, most of them. And so it was important. As soon as I'm done with this, I gotta take care of the dogs, get back on the bike, grab the lit, get back on the bike, and hit the streets. As you can kind of see, I'm tired. um, I've been for the most part, 98 maybe percent, a one-man campaign. Very little help, because I have found within myself the strength to stand on an island solo against much of what I see happening to my beloved city, that I've lived in since 1994, and been a principal contributor to since 1996, in the small business world. I've stood against the DFL. I've stood against the trickle-down, developer-driven agenda of those in power, pretty much from the bottom all the way up. I've stood against the privatization of our public schools, the privatization of public housing, the disenfranchisement of communities when it comes to transportation, the disenfranchisement of our communities when it comes to, as Elijah was saying, communication, the languages that we're communicating in, the way that we're communicating with people. I've stood against the, disastrous Minneapolis 2040 plan, which I believe led us to every single one of our current crises. Scorched earth, winner takes all when it came to fulfilling the agenda of that botched development plan. Again, I am pretty much the only person who had noticed and presented to our city the interesting connections between the 2040 projected development map and the George Floyd destruction map. Perfect fit. So that has made me, and additionally too, I came from, from Minnesota. I mean, I was adopted, brought here, raised here, but, from Minnesota, from the small business community, from the streets, from the creative community. I didn't come out of some political science department at some elite college. I'm not a part of any clique. I'm not hell-bent on paying off my debt and transforming the outer world to suit me. I'm actually trying to protect and defend the city and the people that I know. For instance, question 3, I was deep out in Kenwood yesterday, where I saw some young African-American brothers just kind of lost in out there in elite Kenwood. And I walked up to them, was like, yo, what are you guys doing? You lost? What do you need? And they were there pushing the no on question 3. And I was like, do you brothers, do you know what this is even about? They didn't even know what it was about. They had no understanding of what they were out there politicking for. And I said, well, who's paying for you? Who's putting you out here? They were coming through a temp agency. They were like, yeah, bro. And so I explained to them what rent stabilization, as I view it and as I present it to my community, is all about. I said, hey, brother, it's if your grandmother is a renter, if your mother is low income, doesn't make a lot of money, as a renter, it's to protect her. It's to make sure that she can stay in her home. This isn't bad. This is a moral thing. It's about our senior citizens who are living in the building that I live, many in their 60s and 70s, some probably in their 80s, who are on a fixed income, Social Security, but still rent. For whatever reason, choice, or because they were never able to get in on that equity building, American dream. And so rent stabilization, as I look at it, is to protect those people who have no other place to go, that can't afford or can't suffer the ever rising rents. And so, I've I've been just trying. And, Diana, as my Humphrey fellow, you were there with me for that year or whatever it was, where I kind of spoke truth to corporate power, asked questions that other people had no thought to even ask. Pointed, hey, did you think about this? Or remember when that Eric Jolly or whatever his name is, who runs the Minnesota Foundation, came to speak to us, and I had him within an inch of indicting himself and the whole nonprofit industrial complex. For creating more of the problems and extending them, not really doing anything to abate them, but paying themselves heavily and handsomely. So for all of this, I don't know, I found myself relatively alone, and that's okay. Somehow, I've told my friends I'm on ancestral fumes, and I will get back, like I said, on my bike and use up what the ancestors have given me to speak truth to power, and to represent, I don't know, a different perspective. The amendments have been, I think, smoke and mirrors that have separated us from the actual work in front of us. Only within the last month did I put up at the top of my website where I have to stand politically on these amendments. But even generally, where I stand politically is where I stand individually. The language, the rollout, botched. I expect the opposition to do a much better job to craft policy ideas and language and a vision substantial and that's built on something, not kind of selling us more hopes and dreams. That's what the city does.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's what the city has been doing, and all my activist friends are at loggerheads with the city for those reasons, yet they're replicating the city's systems. And so I agree with young Elijah on the city must, and I pray that whoever ends up being elected or re-elected, heaven forbid, in the 7th Ward, I do not think Lisa should be re-elected, but I pray that they wake up and do their jobs. I hear left and right, oh, Lisa, she's been there, she understands the system. Yes, the corruption. Oh, well, she answers her emails and things like that. Well, only to a few. Only those with power or position or of interest to her. And quite frankly, I've told people, well, that's her job to answer your emails. If the bar is that low, no wonder our city burnt.
So Tekken, before we jump into those 3 questions, because I know that you both have a lot that you would like to say about those 3 questions, I'm going to throw out the same question that I gave to Elijah. If you were elected, what would you jump in right away and change?
I would be out there on the streets with those doing the work downtown to rescue our youth. I would be there front and center in our public school systems, representing the city and the most, the common interests of the 7th Ward, inspiring entrepreneurial endeavors, supporting and shining the municipal light on youth excellence. I would be laying myself down as a bridge to reconnect the 7th Ward to the rest of the city, to inspire the 7th Ward in all of the power, prestige, wealth, institutional, governmental knowledge, educational knowledge that we've got, to plug it into the rest of the city. That's what I would be doing, and falling back on the 2 decades plus professional experience that I have running my own small business in this town against all odds, to as young Elijah said, help craft better communication, to make sure that everyone is at the table so that we can co-create this next Minneapolis miracle, because the last one in the late 60s, early 70s left, 60-70% of Minneapolis out of the equation, if not more. And so that's what I would be doing. I would be bringing the 7th Ward across the bridges to the other wards to see what's really going on, and to show the 7th Ward's support for those initiatives that demonstrate our values in real time. That's what I would be doing.
Okay, so Dee, let me ask you this before we jump into these three questions. You live in the Fifth Ward. Is there anything that you would like to ask Mr. Elijah? Should he be elected?
Well, you talk about communication, and that's the one thing that I find hasn't happened at all. Community input is not sought, and when it's offered, it's not acknowledged. And that's, I think, the one thing for me that is paramount. If we don't talk to each other, then how are we going to solve any of these problems? So both of you talk about communication, and for me, that's number one. Certainly I'm concerned about all three of the charter amendments. I want to see change in the police department, but has anybody studied any of these cities that they keep trotting out? Oh, that, and Cincinnati has done it, and this city has done it, and this city has done it. Has anyone studied how they did it? Has anyone asked them, what were your successes? What were your failures? How did you deal with the failures? Diana and I have talked about this a lot. There's no plan. So we need to talk to each other to make that plan, I think.
And Dee, you're absolutely right. One of the things I've been talking with other candidates about, I've talked with almost all the candidates besides Jeremiah Ellison. I'll keep saying that in the hopes that he'll see one of my videos or text messages and decide to get back to me. But I believe that we need to have some type of accountability plan in Ward 5, right? There's nothing that's holding our city council members accountable to the people that they say they're going to represent. So why don't we create a Ward 5 comprehensive plan, right? Where we can get different stakeholders to the table. We have weekly meetings, bi-weekly meetings where we invite community members together and we figure out what are our ward's priorities. What things do you want me to advocate for when I'm in City Hall? So it's not just me and the handful of people that support me coming up with the agenda is for Ward 5, but I've actually sat down and engaged people from our community, the church leaders, the community-based organizations, the regular mom and pop shops that are around this area, the people who just are concerned about the ward. Why can't we put them all into a room or in the Zoom meeting and craft up a plan that we all agree on, and that it can also hold me accountable to accomplish those things? We don't have one of those. We have one for the city level, but we don't have one for each individual ward. And I think we need one specifically for Ward 5 because we're last in every single category. If you look across the board, educational attainment, Ward 5 is last. Household media income, Ward 5 is last. Look at voter turnout and voter engagement, Ward 5 is last. Look at educational disparities, reading and writing and math proficiencies for our kids, Ward 5, last. I can go on and on and on. Ward 5 is last in almost every single category. What is this ward's priorities? What is this community saying we want and what we need? And how can this next city council member be held accountable to accomplishing those things? So I think implementing that Ward 5 comprehensive plan will push us in that right direction. And so far, the candidates that I have talked to would entertain crafting and coming up with something like that. Haven't talked with Jeremiah, so I know where his head is about that. But other candidates have agreed that it's a good idea and it's something that's, should be worth taking up.
That reminds me of the organization and the individual will remain nameless. But during the endorsement process, we were filling out questionnaire after questionnaire after questionnaire, and I pushed back on some of it, specifically some of it that related to my individual community, my particular demographic. And I was told, Tekken, if, how did she put it? Getting caught up in the details inhibits progress or something like that. Which basically, the details halt us from making progress in this particular agenda. I was flabbergasted and deeply disappointed. And I was like, no wonder. We keep talking and nothing happens ever. And that's been my problem coming from small business. you know, and Diana, like I said, you know well how my mind works. You know, I do support a strong chief executive. When I had my company for 22 years, Vision Models, Vision Management Group, the buck stopped with me. And I'll be honest, when I abdicated a lot of that to my employees, boy, did we suffer for it. I'm being honest, you know, and at the very end, when I grabbed back the wheel of my own ship, I can't tell you how many clients were expressed to me their relief that they were speaking again to me. And then told me things that they went through with my employees that they never came to me about, but stopped us from making the money that I projected us we should have been making. You know, the results. And so I firsthand understand what a mess 13 or 14 feudal lords can be, as opposed to a chief executive and a legislative council that is beholden to and representative of the neighborhoods, and therefore is crafting policy ideas for the executive and can override him, her, or them, or vice versa. Even right now, I urge Jacob to show us what a strong mayor could be and veto the council, their abominable decisions on the rooftop depot expansion against East Phillips and the East Phillips Little Earth's indoor garden initiative. Show us what this power could look like, sir. Veto them. Stand with community. He won't, of course, because he does not represent this community, even if he's going to be reelected. And if I am elected, I've already said I will do my best to serve his administration. But I do not support him. Question 2. As I think you and Elijah were saying when I first got on here, I'm sorry, D, you were saying engagement. What do you, engagement, schmagement? You know, I was on the Upper Harbor Terminal CAC. I can tell you what the city does with our community engagement. They listen to it, in, out, garbage. They're going to continue doing the agenda that they're on. And so one of the reasons why they didn't invite everybody's stakeholders, like young Elijah was saying, into the room, because that would have pushed them into the weeds of nuance, which would have stopped them from getting the poorly constructed amendment language out there in the first place, and would have, you know, kicked the ball maybe to the next election or to the first 4-year election in 4 years from now, or whatever it is, which would have been just fine. The way I was raised not to jump the gun. And a lot of people are going to hate me for that. A lot of my friends are going to hate me for that. I don't care. The community's hardest hit, most impacted, the one that young Elijah and my dear friend Christelle want to represent, in Deep South over there, what is that, 6 or what, I can't remember, you know what I mean? Those people were not at the table because they would have been talking a reality that didn't fit the agenda. So I can't, I'm Black, I get it. Those cops who killed George Floyd, that Asian cop, we those of us who are from here, we've seen that dude for years looking for people to kill. But unless we've got a plan, strategy, step 1, step 2, step 3, if there's follow-up, we're going to do this. We're going to have these intergovernmental partnerships and stuff. Lisa Goodman in our Star Tribune editorial book was like, oh, Tekken, I mean, that would be just, well, no, that's what we need. Intergovernmental partnerships. And when she said that she had only just now started studying up on public safety, the Strip went and turned around and said that, you know, she was so keyed in and is the one to know what to do. I ran into Tom Hoke yesterday in Kenwood, and he confirmed it. He's like, yeah, she told me that when we talked on the phone. She doesn't know anything about public safety because her ward, my ward, has been insulated until now. She's not keyed in at all. And I already spoke to my support for question 3, which is something that I was one of only 2 people to run on in 2017, when the architects, including Council President Bender and Jeremiah Ellison and all these other people, said that it didn't work. Now what are they doing? Running on rent control. poorly constructed to push a greater agenda. So
let's have you jump in here, Mr. Elijah, and give us your take on these three questions that you.
I was just going to hop in. Thank you, Tekken, for queuing that up for me. On question one, I agree with everything Tekken said. I'm in favor of a strong mayoral system. The only thing I want to add is that most major cities have a strong mayoral system. They either have a strong mayoral system or they have a hybrid model system. And I think it's just time for the Minneapolis to make that switch. Our friends across the river in St. Paul, they have a strong mayoral system. And from my analysis so far, it's been working quite well for them. It works quite well for major cities. And Minneapolis just needs to hop on and just, make that transition. I think it just makes the most sense, especially when we want to become more efficient, more effective at delivering services from our city departments. We need to have a strong mayoral system, a strong executive system. Question number two, I've said it and I'll continue to say this, it's just a poorly drafted plan. I believe that, we want to see reforms in our police departments. Some, are questioning if we're able to get there. I think they have the rights to question that, but I think we won't know until we actually sit down and try real reform. Instead of just trying to push an issue that we're not too certain it's going to work. I think when people came together at Potterhome Park last year and said they're going to defund the police, I think in my heart, it was purely emotional.
yes.
There was high emotions running during that time. I understand that. A black man was essentially lynched in broad daylight for the world to see. I was frustrated. I was angry. But to make that type of emotional decision as an elected official, I think it was a poor choice, especially in the time of a pandemic, especially in a time where we had increased crime, especially in Ward 5 and Ward 4 and throughout the south side of Minneapolis. I think we left a lot of our residents vulnerable. And I think once we started using certain languages like defunding the police and abolishing the police, we started to empower a lot of people who are actually out committing these crimes. So I think we need police reform. I know we need police reform. I know we need additional resources. I'm not necessarily certain that it should come from the city as far as them delivering those services. I believe their role should be to come up with the funding, to find community-based organizations and community-led organizations that can do mental health support, can do drug rehabilitation and drug rehab assistance for our community members, and can be that alternative response to being in police there. I don't have faith that the city is going to be able to actually deploy those services. We already are inefficient with a lot of other services that we're supposed to be providing to our city members. And I think we're just going to be taking on too much, and we don't have the necessary resources to carry that out. So I'm going to be voting no on question two. And then on question three, I think in theory, I am in favor of rent stabilization. I am in favor of people being able to afford their rent. I'm a renter myself, and I pay a lot of money in rent. I think it's ridiculous, and I think it's only going to get more expensive as the blue line comes through North Minneapolis and there's bigger developments happening in North Minneapolis. I know it's going to get out of hand. So in theory, I am in favor of people being able to afford where they live if they're renters, but I'm also in favor of people being able to have resources to become homeowners if they want to own a home.
Yes.
I'm also in favor of sitting down and figuring out how can we best provide support to people who are renters if they're not being exploited, and how can we also hold landlords accountable if they are going to buy homes in North Minneapolis or have apartment buildings in North Minneapolis and have renters, right? I'm sick of the slumlords. I'm sure you can find residents in Northside Minneapolis that can also attest to this. We have a lot of homes that are owned by people in North Minneapolis that don't live here, right? They may live in Florida or may live in Denver or, halfway across the United States of America, but they have rental properties here. I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think you should be able to own 5 to 10 houses here and not even be a resident or live within the state of Minnesota. Who's looking after your property? If I have an issue with my home, I got to wait 2 months to get a service, but you expect that rent on the first of the month? That's ridiculous to me. So how can we start holding these landlords a little bit more accountable when they do have more properties in Northside Minneapolis or throughout our city? And then also, how can we build more affordable housing units so everyone can have a place to stay? So that's kind of where I'm at right now on question three. I know that doesn't answer the question whether I'm voting yes or no on it. I think as the language reads right now, I'm going to have to be a no vote, just so I can be transparent as possible.
And I am a yes just purely on the principle, and have had run on it before. But I agree Again, even activists who are responsible for the initiative in town have told me that it's been so watered down and or co-opted, sold up the river, etc. I tie it to historic preservation. I tie it to deep tax, if not even tax exemption, for local small local landlords who want to come on board with this really morals driven initiative. But I agree with many people that the underlying issue is access to quality, high paying or good paying jobs. And we know that we have a problem with that in Minneapolis, specifically for Black, Brown, and Indigenous people, specifically downtown in the section that I will be representing. And I have ideas that I haven't even rolled out because we've been so bogged down in amendments of how to push for greater diversity and inclusion in jobs downtown, the good ones at the best restaurants and in the hotels and things like this, where you're not only getting that hourly, but you're getting those tips and things like that. And where we fall short in communities, we need to show up with training, access to training, and things like that to bring up communities who have been so disenfranchised from the educational system. You know, all of this dysfunction is on purpose. All of it. Even in the trades. You know, we know so many people in our communities who know how to tinker with this and fix that within like seconds, but they don't have the accreditation coming from, you know, some trade school or whatever it might be. We've got to figure out ways to level the playing field. And when we do that, then we can bring people up so that then they can enter into those spaces that we've created where we are training you, giving you the tools to become a first-time homeowner. And when the city is holding these slumlords accountable and yanking their licenses and preserving those buildings like we had to do here at 200, we're fighting to do at 200 Oak Grove, then we have stock that can be shored up and put onto the market for first-time home ownership opportunities. All of this stuff is doable. It's not rocket science. It's just that we have a city government led by Lisa Goodman, supported by Jackie Cherry Holmes and a bunch of other individuals that is deeply, systemically corrupt and is purposefully holding so many outside to not be able to enjoy all that Minneapolis can offer. And so it's time to pass the baton. If the last few years on top of the last 20-some, that even the national press says has only grown the disparities that Elijah was speaking of with regards to home ownership, opportunities for Black and Brown people, job creation, entrepreneurial endeavors, education, housing, you know, all these things, the gaps have widened this big and resulted in multiple civil unrest. And if those last 2 years of multiple civil unrest on top of COVID-19, which is a global pandemic, isn't enough of a red flag saying that we've got to clean house and perhaps change direction and reprioritize. What is it going to take?
But
and I'm afraid of what it's going to take.
Brother Tech, and you said it earlier, and it made me so, and I think I heard you say it in a forum. I think it was you and Nick Core. I think that's one of your opponents as well, I believe. You all were in a forum and you were talking about the nonprofit industrial complex. And I know well about this, right? I've studied this in my master's program. I actually wrote my master's thesis about nonprofit accountability. And it sickens me that when people talk about Northside Minneapolis, they talk about all the nonprofits we have.
Mm-hmm.
Terrible. We have so much more to offer in Ward 5 and in Ward 4 than just nonprofit organizations. And
yes.
Those disparities that I was talking about that you just mentioned again, they have to exist in order for those nonprofits to exist. As these disparities increase and the gap is widened, what also increases? The number of nonprofits and the amount of funding that's coming from these other donors to ensure that things are the way that they are, to ensure our kids can't read, write, and do mathematics by the time they graduate. So we know that this nonprofit organization is going to exist for another 10 to 15 years. to me, until we start addressing those issues, we're always going to see these disparities in communities like Ward 4 and Ward 5. No longer could be known as this having the most nonprofits. That's despicable. It's unacceptable.
That's right. And it seeps into downtown, which is historically a part of the North Side. Historically, downtown belongs to the North Side. And it seeps into here. What we're doing, what we want is we want everyone to do better. That's it. And until we do better, unfortunately, the nonprofits are the storefront of apartheid. I'll say that one more time. The nonprofit industrial complex are collectively the storefronts of apartheid in Minnesota. And so we want, and of course, there are some that are doing amazing things. We want them all, if they're going to be here and if they're going to be amassing these huge endowments, we want them to spend them on the problems, not on hiring friends and paying themselves a lot of money. Paternalism isn't helping anyone. And we had many fellows, I think it was, I think Lee, Diana, was going to, I think his initial project for our Humphrey cohort was on this. And then he came on board with my public safety project, which I was thankful for. But it's a real issue. And until we release that chokehold from the people, the body of Minneapolis, we're going to see these problems continue to grow. And I think that's a frightening prospect.
Well, I'm gonna give you both about 5 minutes. This is your last pitch. I want you to really tell us why I need to go vote for either one of you, or why people should go vote for you. I mean, this is Elijah. You're out there. What do you want the people to know?
Well, I want you to know who Elijah Norris Holiday is. I'm someone that has not always had my life together. I've had to go through many trials and tribulations. I've made multiple mistakes in my life. Some of those mistakes led me to having 2 felonies, 2 nonviolent felonies, may I add, but 2 felonies nonetheless. I've struggled a lot throughout my life on my own, just hearing things from my elders and my parents and not really taking heed to it, not listening to it. So I know what it's like to be a young person and to think that you know it all. And me having that know-it-all mentality has led me to make mistakes in my life. And I haven't always been able to participate in an election. I haven't always been able to make my voice heard in this way to be able to go out and vote. So vote for people like me, who was once in a position where I could not vote, where I could not participate in an election. And I know we have so many other people in this community who also were once in that position as me. Vote because your rights were once taken away from you. Vote because we had ancestors who literally died. Not figuratively speaking here, literally died, laid their lives on the line for us to be able to engage in civil discussions, for us to be able to engage in civil matters, for us to have an opinion, and for us to be seen. So vote for those people if you're not going to vote for yourself. And if you're not even going to vote for those people, if you have kids, vote for them. Vote for your youth. Vote for your children. Because the people who are going to be elected are going to have a lot of control over their lives, and they're going to have a lot of control in the direction that our city is going to go in. So vote for them. Vote for the future of Minneapolis. I believe that once we all come together as a collective group, we can get a lot of things done. But as long as we remain divisive and that ends with each other, nothing's going to happen, regardless who wins this next election, right? No matter how we vote on these 3 amendments, if we're not going to be able to sit down and have civil discussions with each other, even when we don't disagree, we're never going to accomplish anything. And we're going to be in the same position 2 years from now, 4 years from now, 10 years from now. Yes. President Obama once said we need to get to the point where we can disagree without being disagreeable. And to me, that means if I don't agree with you, I can still sit down and have a discussion with you, and hopefully we can come to some type of agreement that's going to benefit the both of us. I think we've lost sight of that. I don't think we're able to sit down and have a conversation with people if we don't agree with us. We're afraid to sit down with someone that doesn't see eye to eye with us because maybe it's a fear that they might challenge us in ways that we have not been challenged before. But we need to get uncomfortable. We need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. We need to be able to come together as elected officials, as community members, and have tough conversations with each other, ask tough questions, and then to be able to find good solutions to some of the issues that we have. not quick solutions, but hard, good solutions. And that takes having hard conversations with each other. So that's the final thing that I want to add. After this election, I plan on doing what I've always done, which is engaging young people, creating jobs and opportunities for them, connecting opportunities with them, and to continue to be a voice for people who have been unrepresented. I'll continue to show up at events. I'll continue to be out in community, and I'll continue to do the best job that I can of making sure that I'm paving a way for our young people to be more successful than I am. Being able to provide them more opportunities than I was provided, and then to be able to uplift them and empower their voice to be better than I am. So that's what I'll continue to do after this election. And I'm willing and able to connect with whoever wins the Ward 5 City Council. I've talked with Christelle, love Christelle Porter. Talked with Captain Span, love Captain Span. Me and Victor does not agree on every single thing, but I've been able to have good conversations with Victor Martinez. I have not been able to have a good civil conversation with Jeremiah. I haven't had a conversation at all. But even if he wins this election, I'm still willing to call him up, sit down, and figure out solutions to support our young people in Northside Minneapolis. We're unique in the fact that we have the most young people throughout the entire city of Minneapolis, right here on the north side. What opportunities and jobs are we providing them with? So I'm willing to sit down and craft those solutions with whoever's the next city council member, if it's not me. And I hope Tech and you would do the same. I know you're a man of your word, and I know you really deeply care about your community. I know you'll do the same thing as well. So I challenge everyone who's running in this race, don't let it just be about this election. Let it be about community. Let it be about actually creating change. And you can do that whether you're elected or not.
Yes, well said. You know, I came downtown, fled really, 2 weeks after graduating. I mean, I had been coming, you know, for a year or two prior to that, but I finally fled from my small town to downtown Minneapolis, where I was able to feel safe and to create a world in which I could flourish against all odds, yes, still, but without the racial violence that I faced as a child. I was blessed to be able to create a small business out of nothing, from an apartment just down the street on Spruce Place in 1996, that went on to transform the city of Minneapolis, the state of Minnesota, and indeed the United States in the model and talent industry that I was a part of. We changed people's perceptions about what it meant to be an American, an all-American, and what it meant to be beautiful, or what beauty even was. And we created economic opportunities, professional opportunities, life, learning opportunities for countless Minnesotans, Midwesterners, and Americans, you know, from babies all the way on up. I mean, today I receive, and I'm still very close with many of the toddlers that we represented decades ago, who are now in their early to mid 20s, and thank me for, and Nathan, for the experiences that they gained that set them on the path for the professional lives, successful lives that they're having now. Also to lives where they know that they matter, that they value, and that they have a self-esteem because they were able to see themselves reflected in popular culture. You know, for decades, I have created spaces in this city where all could come and feel welcome and safe to express themselves creatively, artistically. You know, many people have told me that I have been one of the people who has held and protected the beating heart of our city for all these years. And so when I came into the public policy sphere, it was a natural and organic evolution of that work that I had already been doing. And so that's why I'm running, to do some of the things that Elijah was talking about, creating these opportunities, the fertile soil in which our youth can sprout themselves and grow into trusted and productive members of our city, our state, and our country. I want to see more 18, 19-year-olds start their own businesses like I did. Again, you know, and I'm very proud of it. I didn't end up in that book of historic African Americans for nothing. I want to see more youth end up in that book in the next 15 or so years than they end up in prison.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, Tegan?
About what?
How did you end up in that book?
I mean, just being unafraid. You know, at 19 years of age, to start a business with my former partner that created these opportunities and totally transformed the city of Minneapolis. We were one of the first African American, I mean, I'm Afro-Colombian, but you know, the Black businesses in the downtown corridor. I'm not sure in the early 90s how many Black businesses were downtown. It was, you know, downtown had been a sundown town for the most part. And so we paved the way. And that's all that I'm trying to do from City Hall, and all that I will do from City Hall. And so it's just time to make sure that every Minneapolitan has whatever he, she, or they need, their families need, to be an active, vital, keyed in part of this community. We understand now, after the riots of 67 and the riots of 21 or 20, that when we have too many disenfranchised, it's to our entire detriment. You know, and to one of the things that I want to be able to bring that professional business person's mind to City Hall, which I think it's deeply lacking. So there's so many things. I want to get back to the creativity and the vibrancy of the city of Minneapolis. I want to get through these dark times without the rhetoric and the performative activism and showboating that we see time and time again in forums, where we come out of it with no solutions, as Elijah was saying. We need solutions, and we need people who are deeply rooted in this community and who can walk between disparate parts of this community to knit together our most common narratives, and to create space in which everyone can speak and be validated in their message, so that we can get through the muck to the problem solving. It's not outside of our reach if we actually just stop being lazy, stop writing op-eds in the New York Times, and do the hard work of leading with community.
Hmm.
So,
D'Essa, you wanted to jump in there?
Well, yeah, I mean, Elijah was talking about having uncomfortable conversations, and I think we have to remember that we need conversations where we're not seeking confirmation bias. We're not just talking to people who believe that the same way we do. And I guess my question was to both of you: should you not be elected, will you continue to speak for the communities that you're part of now? Because we can't lose these voices.
I'll be honest with you. I've been fighting the systems in all their forms for over 2 decades. I'm not sure, should I lose, what's going to be next for me. I feel in my heart that I'm being called in other directions, specifically spiritually. And so I do not see that I will not be someone who is of service in whatever endeavor I move into. We'll see. I've been very disappointed in what I've seen since 2017. And, we'll see. We'll see for me.
We'll allow Elijah to answer.
Yeah, I would say for me, absolutely. I've already started doing some of that work by reaching out to all the other candidates, letting them know that I still want to be a resource to them. And as they can also use me as a resource as well. And I want to build that community with them. I want to build collaborations with them. And if I don't win, I will continue to show up and be a voice, especially for the young people. You know, anyone that's in high school, in middle school, who right now feel like their voice isn't heard. It's not heard right now. We have young folks over on the northeast side of Minneapolis out there protesting because a teacher called another student the N-word, right? We need to continue to show up and be there for our young people. So That's what I've dedicated all my life to, and I'll continue to do it. As Tekken mentioned, I don't know if it will be in this specific capacity of as running for office again. I have a lot of skills, and when I took on this journey to run for office, I let a lot of contracts go out the door. Lost a lot of money to pursue this, and I think right now, as a 25-year-old person who's capable of being in different rooms and using the various skills that I think I have an opportunity to make a lot of money right now, and also use that money to do good things for my community. I don't know if you all know this about me, but in my business, we employ a lot of young people, and we subcontract a lot of young people to do various jobs for us throughout the Twin Cities. So I really like to get back to that, being, that connector for young people who have talents and skills, and being able to get them paid to do what they do. Because a lot of times people like to hire them on for just the experience and not the paycheck. So I've been someone that young people can come to, say, hey, this young person wants to contract me. This is a fair deal. And I will say, no, they should offer you this based off the jobs that you've done for me. And I've been able to advocate for young people in that manner. And I would love to continue to do that more on a grander scale after I'm done running for city council. So I don't know if I'll be advocating in this specific way of running for office again, but you'll definitely hear of Elijah Norris again in other spaces and other rooms, definitely.
Well, listen, I want to wish you both the best of luck tomorrow. We're getting down to the end of the show.
The nitty-gritty.
Yes, I really want everybody to keep Mr. McFarlane in your prayers and hope our friend gets better. Like I said,
what happened?
He had a little surgery on his mouth, so he couldn't talk. So, but he's good. He's good. So we just have to keep him in our prayers. And like I said, looking forward to the election tomorrow and seeing what happens after that. And real quickly before we leave, I just want to make everybody aware that Hawthorne Neighborhood Council is having a coat giveaway on November the 20th. Please email me at dhawkins@hncmpls.org. And then also join us this Thursday for the Huddle, Hawthorne Huddle. We are honoring the cookie cart, and we're honoring U.S. Bank and Robbie on West Broadway. So again, I appreciate everyone being with us today. Dee, do you have anything final that you want to say? This has been a great show. I'm signing off for Conversations with Al McFarlane. I wish everybody the best. Talk to you later. Bye.
Good luck tomorrow, Elijah.